Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Marissa Kozlov, and it is great to have you with us for today's eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and MarTech. Today, we're talking about how data clean rooms can provide a faster, safer, and a more accurate way to measure marketing performance. And I am joined by two very special guests, so let's meet them to kick it off. First, we have Scott Kozub, Vice President of Data and Activation Products from Experian. Scott, great to have you here.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. I also have Devon DeBlasio, Vice President of Product Marketing at InfoSum. Devon, great to see you too.
Thanks, Marissa. Great to be here.
So happy to have both of you here. And we're also thrilled to have all of you with us from our audience in attendance. Just as a reminder, please keep it conversational with us. We love to hear from you throughout the duration of the show. Don't forget, we're doing a live Q&A in the second part today where Devon and Scott can answer your questions. So anything that you have on your mind, just use the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. So please keep those coming. We have a great conversation planned for today. So Devon, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Marissa. And thanks for everyone who's able to attend today's webinar. And also thanks to my esteemed guest, Scott, as well, from the Experian side. We want to kick things off and just talk about, the first thing that always comes to mind is the challenges in the advertising and marketing industry. Measurement is not something that has ever really had a resolution in terms of being really, really easy to do across multi-channel. And when we think about clean rooms, specifically in the US, many of the clients that we work with and the partners that we engage with, they think measurement first. They think clean rooms are really here to provide a service that allows more data to be connected together in order to successfully measure campaign, audience, and media performance, and that's true. That's one of the very multitude of use cases that exist. But when we actually take a look at what actually is going wrong with measurement over the past 10 to 15 years, the more data that we have to actually access and use, the more intermediaries that are required to essentially help us coalesce all of this data, we run into a lot of challenges. And even today's clean rooms who promise, better measurement are seeing very similar issues that we've seen even before clean rooms were a thing. And so the first is really slow and latent in terms of the time it takes to receive measurement data or measurement information back, as well as using intermediaries like an onboarder or a crosswalk service. It takes even longer for these organizations to actually move the data from party A to party B or from platform A to platform C. And so when we look at the time it takes in terms of getting the results back, it's just too slow in the current status quo process that exists today, even within some of these clean room environments. Also, the hidden fees that exist. So, using these intermediaries who you really require to pull all this data together, they're charging you, they're charging your partners, they're charging anyone up and down the list. And it just becomes really, really prohibitive in terms of using these solutions to actually perform measurement at a cost reductive manner. And so really these hidden fees and this high cost of using all of this data, even in the clean room, is still a major issue that we're seeing that many of our clients face with today. It's also extremely unsafe. Even within the clean room environments, many clean room environments that exist today, they rely on these intermediaries, these onboarders, these other third parties to essentially shift data around the open web. It makes it very difficult for an organization to control their data as it's used, whether they're providing data to enrich a measurement solution, or you're actually providing your own transaction or your own exposure level data if you're an advertiser or a publisher or media owner. So it's extremely unsafe today in terms of how the data gets from party A to party B in order to actually just perform these calculations. And it's a fragmented mentality. It's actually going to multiple parties. It's being exchanged. It's being essentially used in these unknown third-party kind of ways on the back end of the ecosystem. And this is really, really difficult in order to provide a clean line of sight, as well as clean transparency for how data is used and where this measurement information is actually coming from, to really understand whether or not at the end of the day, the calculations you're running are actually accurate. They're actually telling you what you need to know about your media or your audience performance. And so when we look at data clean rooms and the promise of data clean rooms, specifically at InfoSum, we've essentially created a new mechanism for doing measurement in a safer, faster, scalable way that actually enables organizations to work together as well as work with their existing technology stacks to provide an interoperable solution. So when you have agencies and advertisers and you have publishers and you have data partners, they all need to work together because they all have a different piece of that intelligence pie that's required to generate a full picture of media and campaign and audience performance. Not every single organization has all the data they need. And that's what the promise of clean rooms is, bringing all these organizations together to work in a unified and cohesive and collaborative manner in order for these organizations to generate value from each other's data. And so we've essentially developed a solution using our proprietary clean room and privacy enhancing technology, along with partners such as Experian, to bring data collaboration at a faster speed with greater scale, with more privacy. You're not actually shipping around data. You're not actually shipping around PII from party to party, and actually making it easier for these organizations to work together in an interoperable manner when generating things like a measurement report for MTA, MMM, reach and frequency, so on and so forth. And so we want to talk a little bit today about this joint partnership that we're bringing to market, and specifically how this is happening inside the data cleanroom technology that InfoSum has brought to market. So we've always had a data cleanroom. We were one of the first in market to actually provide a data collaboration platform, allowing 3 or more parties to work together using first-party data. And so inside of the environment where what we call a bunker is a protected and controllable environment where every single party, including an Experian, including an agency, an advertiser, a media owner, and so on and so forth, where they actually have full autonomous control over their data asset. This bunker essentially provides both data security as well as customer privacy using a slew of different technologies and methodologies, right? InfoSum and data cleanroom should never have access to the underlying data. We're using a decentralized data processing engine versus then having to bring everything together in a centralized manner, which can cause a lot of problems down the road when you're running full SQL across that data asset. Data is always going to remain encrypted even at rest, and no data is ever actually moving between one party's bunker to another party's bunker, ever. So no movement of data is the name of the game, utilizing InfoSum bunker technology. And then what we brought to the table in terms of the measurement side of the house is actually multi-dimensional query orchestration, meaning the brand can query the media owner can query the brand, the agencies can query both. Even Experian can go in and query the different data assets of the parties that they're working with. So it's not just a single direction or a single query owner who can run these queries to generate insights. We have privacy-safe data matching technology that we're using. We're actually using things like synthetic identifiers that are irreversible to replace all the PII so that no data is actually moving when it does have to be essentially shipped to a data science environment or an analytical environment to do some advanced calculations. And all the differential privacy filters are all intact and remaining applied to the data at a various kind of clip based on the level of noise that you want to add to that data asset. And all of this is being done for every single party who's working inside an InfoSum cleanroom, including into Experian. So every organization who wants to connect to the Experian identity graph and data asset, they are essentially having all of these protections of privacy and security in place at all times, including Experian themselves, who actually has full autonomous control over their own data asset as well. And we look at what we're bringing to the table in terms of InfoSum Experian. There's a slew of products and solutions that we have brought to market that we've released over the various years. Today, we want to focus on just a couple of those. So right now, inside of the InfoSum data cleanroom environment, the Experian identity graph lives to essentially bridge together the organizations who may not have matching keys or may not have enough scale to provide additional scale to actually create an overlap so collaboration can happen. And Scott's going to talk a little bit more about the different types of assets that exist outside of that in terms of enrichment and customer intelligence across retail, healthcare, and auto.
Thanks, Devin. Hey, very much aligned on the earlier points about the challenges in the space and the fact that clean rooms really begin to solve those and make it a lot easier to power measurement. So Experian partnered with InfoSum because we saw a clear problem in the clean room space that it was worth solving. And when partners are trying to collaborate with each other, if they have different identity sets, unless they both have the same identifier, there's not a match. And that's really where Identity Bridge comes into play with brands. It connects people back to, it connects the data sets back to real people. So we help expand the reach and scale between parties via Identity Bridge. So you get more and accurate matching that can take place across offline and online identity. So as Devin was mentioning, users can connect directly to our Experian graph of 250 million individuals and 126 million households. They really enable them to do the direct matching. And that really solves the challenge too when they work in different identity spaces. Say one partner collects address, the other collects email. Identity Bridge can really address that. And I think it also expedites the timing, to your point. A point on some of the data sets that we have beyond just identity, and I'll touch on this slide in a moment about some of the assets in the graph. Experian's been compiling and processing data for over 5 decades. So we have curated and organized information from consumers from hundreds of sources. That overarching data set is known as Consumer View. It's one of the largest, most comprehensive consumer data sets that's available for traditional and digital marketing. There's over 5,000 attributes, and that covers a bunch of verticals like retail, health, and auto. Having access to demographic information, life events, purchase data, lifestyle interest, that can all help inform marketing decisions for brands. It really, to your point earlier, allows them to enrich their own data so they can get a deeper understanding of who their customers are, helps them with more actionable insights, relevant targeting, and even campaign measurement. So we'll touch on automotive in a little bit. On this slide, this just gives you a sense of the details within the Experian ID graph that's available as part of Identity Bridge, right? That allows you to create those connections between the partners. We have 126 million households across the US. That includes full postal address. We maintain the history of those addresses, national change of address when people move. We hygiene that so we understand the people that reside at that household across a variety of name matching. All that helps sort of triangulate back to the same household across different data sets if each partner has different addresses. We also have 250 million individuals in the graph, and we track their household association. And that really includes 1.5 billion email addresses as well as mobile phone numbers. Here again, you can connect across divergent identifiers with partners to really facilitate more of that collaboration. On the digital side, we also have 3 billion devices. That does include mobile ad IDs as well as connected TV IDs, and 1 trillion digital signals. Those are cookies, IP addresses, and the rise of alternate IDs like UID2, Panorama, ID5, Halo. So InfoSum's been a great partner in helping bring their solution to the client base inside of their clean room, and leveraging not only our data sets, but also our identity layer.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so again, when we're talking about measurement, I think identity is and continues to be the first critical step in getting measurement right. I think we've always battled with what identity graph to use, what IDs should we be using, what partners should we be working with. And really the uniqueness that InfoSum brings in terms of our cleanroom technology is actually providing flexibility and choice for an organization who's either a current partner or current client of Experian, or maybe they want to try Experian's identity graph up against other identity partners to see how it ranks in terms of providing additional reach, additional scale, which we've seen from Experian across the board when partners want to work with them to just create that initial bridge between their data and the multitude of their partners' data. So say I'm a brand, I'm an OEM, I have specific information about my car purchasers, and I'm launching a campaign on a connected TV. I'm working with my media agency. All of us are probably using different identity to actually tell that story. So by having Experian sitting in between all these parties, providing consistency, providing this cohesion around what type of person are we speaking about, how do we actually ensure that we're actually talking to the right person, the right set of individuals, and before we go ahead and build our campaign for targeting or building our campaign for measurement. And I want to lean in on auto specifically because I think auto is one of those areas where it's the next evolution of where we're seeing the future of data clean rooms being used. And so when we look at the specific orchestration in terms of how all this works, like I said, Experian is essentially sitting there as that Rosetta Stone inside the data clean room to provide the matches, provide the keys that allow partner A and partner B to speak to each other. So an OEM and say a CTV provider. And then once they have the identity used and agreed upon, all the permissions are being granted, then they're off to the races for any of the use cases that they would normally use a data clean room or data collaboration platform for, generating additional insights by looking at the different attributes from each other, building different types of enrichment, actually pulling information potentially even from Experian to enrich their profiles of their customers or their audiences to improve measurement over time. And then actually executing different types of calculations of measurement in platform or off platform after they've activated across the open web, as well as through offline channels as well. So this is just kind of giving you an example of how the data clean room functions in terms of a multi-party collaboration, where Experian is really being used right there as that center point of an identity bridge provider. But then when we look at all the other assets that Scott mentioned in terms of what Experian has to offer, identity is just the first step. It's really then taking that and thinking about, okay, if I am an OEM and I'm working with my ad agency and I need to understand how to best reach these individuals across this particular set of CTV providers, how do I make sure that we have enough information about the type of purchase, type of car that they purchased, the most recent type of car that they have purchased, the information about the parts, the services, so on and so forth. So when we talk about the auto intelligence data, Scott's going to provide a little bit more detail around how rich and robust that asset is that you can actually use to take the next step in essentially providing a very, very compelling and highly actionable campaign within a data clean room.
Yeah, thanks. Some background on Experian auto data. Experian holds a proprietary North American data set. We have over 800 million registered vehicles across the US and Canada. That includes things like title, registration, the mileage driven, and the purchase date. We've got 270 million vehicles in operation right now, and 11 billion vehicle history events, including accidents. So a ton of information flows back into this. And from that data set, we've went and developed 750 in-market owner-type audiences to help inform planning and targeting, right? A couple examples of those would include consumer behavior, who's looking to buy, who's a brand loyalist, who's a switcher based on all this history we have and other things we know, not just about automotive. We have body styles, alternative fuel types, make and model, 450 syndicated audience across 32 brands. And core to measurement, we also have an automotive sales data set based on leased and purchased vehicles. So we can get to the make, model, and trim by purchase date. We know where the vehicle's tagged, which helps really inform that measurement within InfoSum. And to your point, Devin, this really means that auto clients and agencies can use, our data and some of our identity capabilities to support full life cycle, from campaign planning, audience selection, targeting decisions, all the way to post-campaign measurement with actual sales outcomes. And being able to enrich first-party data along with exposure data and outcomes inside of InfoSum without that data ever leaving the hands of the original data controllers is a really important need that I think InfoSum is doing a great job to sort of fill that space.
Totally agree with you, Scott. I mean, it's really intelligence without actually having to own the identity itself, right? That's the biggest portion that I think people kind of miss out on when they talk about data clean rooms. And I want to elaborate on that a little bit more and talk about some practical applications of what we've seen work today in terms of using Experian auto data and the different types of ways that you can actually build unique collaborations. So we talked about an OEM, a manufacturer, talking about an ad agency and a CTV provider, but you can switch out any of these boxes with any other party to really build that really full collaborative network of partners that want to work together. So as long as you have first party data, or if you don't have first party data, a clean room enables you to essentially run your first party data up as a seed against all of your party's first party data. So in this instance, the OEM's first party data, the advertiser's identity graph, and the CTV subscriber graph, all can be essentially interfaced and connected directly to Experian auto data plus their identity data. Again, no data is exchanging hands, no data is moving, only insights are being pulled out and extracted by each of these individual partners. They all have a different story to tell. The CTV provider wants to make sure that they're delivering the highest ROAS for the advertisers, who essentially is giving them their media dollars. And they have really great insight about what type of channels and viewership behaviors these car buyers or car enthusiasts are actually engaging with. And that will help determine the creative execution that essentially is going to be provided. That will help understand the agency at the end of the day understand how to best specifically allocate specific funds during time of day, during specific types of of events or types of streaming services that they can essentially build a media plan against. And the auto manufacturer can essentially ride shotgun through all of this and understand exactly how their customers or their prospects are being engaged with, and then building those powerful targeting campaigns to run up against them. And then we actually look at what this looks like in practicality. It's really simple as I needed more information about my customers, and I need that information to be shared across all the customers of my partners that we're trying to create these experiences with. And so if I don't have an existing customer, but maybe I'm looking at someone who's trying to buy a different type of auto manufacturer from what they're currently buying, I know their income level. We know things about whether they have children in the home, their different buying preferences and channel preferences, viewing habits, the car type, and all the information that Scott talked about earlier. Maybe there's someone who's a do-it-yourselfer who actually is looking for aftermarket parts. This is where you can bring in some of the auto parts manufacturers into the equation. You can bring in the auto repair service departments into the equation as well, where you can start to use the Experian Autograph inside the clean room to really build your full collaboration network of partners, all centralized around auto intelligence behavior and purchase behavior. And so this essentially is the perfect storm that allows you to not only improve the targeting and the executions you're delivering across channels, also refining the measurement calculations that you're running to add more data points to the actual measurement information, and then allowing any party inside of this collaboration network to run those calculations. So you can have an agency, you can have a brand, and you can have the CTV provider all running their own measurement reports using the same central truth. And that they're all essentially able to check each other's homework. So it does provide transparency and autonomy, as well as the advanced information that's being delivered inside the clean room in terms of first-party, second-party data assets. And these performances, or these calculations can be done inside the platform itself, inside a clean room, done by any of these parties involved. Or what we're actually building net new for InfoSum is actually the ability to push that information, using synthetic identifiers to replace all of the PII, to a specific analytical environment. Maybe your agency has a data science team, or the CTV provider has their own measurement process, or even the agency has an in-house data science team. Any organization can do these calculations, whether in platform with really lightweight, fast UI drag and drop tools to calculate things like incremental lift, requin frequency, again, nothing reliant on any sort of cookies or device identifiers, or you can do the off-platform analysis to get a little bit more granular, a little bit more closer to the data assets themselves. Again, not seeing any of the underlying PII, just seeing synthetic IDs to measure the counts, keeping all the attributes intact so that anyone, even Experian, can run a measurement report in their own environment, using their own tools without violating any privacy or consent principles. And everyone essentially is above board. And you essentially can use the clean room in this way today through InfoSum, using, again, Experian and partnership and their data to support your measurement needs, again, whether in platform or off platform. And the success that we're seeing is really kind of off the charts in terms of the actual quantifiable results that we're seeing. So these are just some of the stats in terms of quantifiable results that clients using Data Clean Room paired with Experian see today. Things like 20% incremental lift, 38% improved targeting profiling, reduction of cost, increased in brand awareness. There's the numbers go on and on. But I want to actually hear from the audience. So I just want to kick it back to Marissa to make sure that there's any questions you have, we can answer those for you today.
Thank you so much. What a great presentation today. So insightful, so much great information. I loved at the beginning how you were highlighting some of those challenges with some of those legacy solutions. I'm sure some folks in our audience are familiar with some of those that you were referencing, but then also thinking about the opportunity ahead with data clean rooms and how, as you said, to get identity right. And also great to hear about the joint partnership. So congrats to both of you on that. And as you said, we have a number of questions from the audience. So let's get right to those. Devin, the first one is for you. Are there any case studies or anecdotal evidence that you can share about media owners or advertisers that are using data clean rooms effectively to execute their measurement strategies? Our audience always loves to hear success stories. So anything that you can share would be great.
Sure. I haven't gotten approval to say any specific brands or media owners off the top of my head today, but I will say that both in the United States and the EU and the UK, where we have a very prevalent solution, we've seen media owners really take charge of their own measurement solutions. And using a clean room, they actually can feel now comfortable in providing or using their exposure level data and asking the brand to actually bring their transaction or conversion level data to the table without actually having to touch it, without actually having to take it in-house and take the responsibility or liability of bringing that into their own environment. And so we're actually seeing organizations such as CTV providers really taking the lead in terms of providing their own measurement reporting services to the agencies and to their brands without, with end-to-end kind of privacy enhancing technology, but also the advertiser has the flexibility of calculating their own reporting as well. But they really have started to feel comfortable in terms of the media owners themselves providing these reports. And we've seen great lift, great scale in terms of number of campaigns that have been accelerated or increased using clean rooms, as well as the ROI, the increase in yield, the increase in CPMs, as well as the increase in ROAS for the advertisers at the end of the day as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I heard the word increase lots of times, so that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that success story from the anecdotal perspective. The next question, Scott, I think this will be a great one for you. You both spoke a lot about the partnership. Our next viewer wants to understand, how did this partnership with InfoSum enable advertisers to better understand their audiences and campaigns?
Yeah, I think it's been a great partnership, and I think really it started with that starts with really planning based on insights. It's the ability to tap into to our data sets via an identity layer or other data sets via our identity layer to help create more of those connections. So we think we have a wonderful data set, but we also know we don't have the only data set. And so being able to bring brands together with others so they can do some collaboration, they can do some planning, that really helps them unlock insights about top customers and who their ideal prospects are. Finding which audiences index the highest to their customers, and then having quick access to data inside of InfoSum. I mean, our data is available. We talked about sort of health, auto, retail. Like there's a bunch of data that you can access very quickly inside of that environment. And I think really the other thing is really big is supporting brands to do their own measurement and bringing them together with publishers or with anyone who sort of runs or operates inventory, and being able to tap into those data sets and connect them. Is definitely a key trend that we think advertisers want more of.
Okay, thank you. Devin, our next viewer asks you, when is it necessary to have a data clean room? How large of a company? What's the threshold?
There isn't any threshold. We really have not seen any sort of specific trends in terms of investing in a clean room. Like I said, we work globally. So you think the size of a company in the UK versus the size of a company in the US, it's very different in terms of the amount of data that we're talking about here. And so we've seen SMB, direct D2C organizations who are just getting their first party data strategies off the ground, as well as the massive CPGs and retailers and entertainment organizations who've had decades of time collecting and harnessing the power of first party data. We've also seen really great success with brands who don't even have a lot of first party data coming to the table, because they can work with a media owner, such as a CTV provider, plus Experian, to essentially enrich the media, so they actually can find the right assets that make sense for their client base without actually having to bring any first party data seed audiences to the actual table itself. So it really runs the gamut. And again, our platform specifically is built to be marketer first. It's for the business user. It doesn't require code, doesn't require data science. It doesn't require any advanced tickets or any extra amount of spend or investment. We really believe that privacy enhancing technology, data collaboration should be in everyone's hands. That's the only way we're going to move beyond the cookie and allow adoption across the entire ecosystem to start today versus having to wait into the future.
Okay, good point. So I just asked you a question about company size. I have an industry question for you. We know the healthcare industry often has so many regulations. So is a data clean room a solution that can be used by healthcare brands? Can a data clean room stay privacy compliant under HIPAA for digital campaign measurement? Devin, what are your thoughts on that?
The answer is yes. So no organization is HIPAA compliant. That's not an actual certification that you can get. But we're all adhering to the HIPAA rules and regulations. And so we work with healthcare providers today. We work with insurance providers. We work with pharmacy providers, and we work with the pharmacy retailers as well. And you think this ecosystem is the same as the retailer ecosystem. It's just using extremely sensitive data. But inside of a clean room, there is no data exposed, there is no data shared, there's only insights gleaned. And so we've seen really the first movers in healthcare as well as in automotive and financial services to really take the leap forward because they know how sensitive their data is. They also know how valuable it is. And they really know the right questions to ask a clean room provider to understand what type of PETs are they using, what type of security protocols and privacy protocols that they have in place. So I would say, yes, hands down, healthcare is definitely one of the rising star industries that is using clean room technology today.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Our next question may piggyback off that a little bit. Scott, how are you approaching measurement differently with data clean rooms?
Yeah, I think it builds kind of on what Devin was saying a little bit, right? I mean, one side of it, it's you're able to access priority data sets that can be exposed in a whole new way that in the past you weren't able to. And I think that's even true from us. We used to, we were reluctant to send certain data sets outside of our walls, right? It wasn't an option because once it's gone, it's gone, and you can't really control it. And clean rooms, by their very nature, are set up to be ephemeral. Right? They're there for a period of time. You're connecting the data sets. No one's able to sort of take some of that data out without the right permissions and controls. And then that environment goes away. And then you lose access to that data set. So I think from our perspective, as a company that has a lot of great data, we certainly want others to be able to access that. Clean rooms is one way. I think the other core component of clean rooms and how we've approached measurement differently is just it's the speed at which this can occur. Right. In the past, it was setting up crosswalks and delivering those, and then they had to exchange files behind the scenes, and you had to format those. You had to bring them into a data set. You had to merge them. You had to get your data scientists on it. That doesn't happen in clean rooms, right? That could be set up and could sort of be shared in an always-on type fashion, and it's much quicker to sort of get a quick read and really sort of tap into the results.
Okay, thanks for your perspective on that one. Devin, you brought up, I think in the last question that you answered, you talked a little bit about cookies going away. Our next viewer asks, how are publishers who are heavily reliant on third-party ads working with their DSPs, SSPs, et cetera, to help them target more effectively on the publisher platform?
Great question. I mean, at this point, publishers have had a very, very long time in runway because Safari and Firefox and others already have not been using third-party cookies, right? So we're waiting for that last bastion of Chrome to really kind of hit the gas on that. And so we've seen a lot of publishers working directly with their SSPs to build a first-party data strategy in the bid stream that makes sense for their business. And so, again, clean rooms are really meant to be used in terms of a first-party, second-party context. And so the publishers that we've seen have been extremely successful are no-brainer the ones who have been able to collect and essentially create a really great relationship with their subscribers in order to have or amass this first-party data asset that they are now using to their advantage in terms of connecting that directly with advertiser and other media buyer first-party data assets. And so in order to protect that in the bid stream, there's a multitude of these non-perishable IDs that we're seeing kind of hit the market. Scott mentioned a bunch of those before that are currently within the Experian graph that are also residing within the InfoSum platform. We're ID agnostic. So if party A and party B have a non-cookie based identifier that they can use and they can connect, or they can use Experian to bridge that gap, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. And actually, we encourage multiple testing of these identifiers because we don't have a clear winner yet, right? Different regions use different identifiers. They all might make sense for a different combination of partners working together. And so that's why we want to bring the flexibility of identity and IDs to the table with the data clean room to give these organizations the ability to start testing and understanding what makes sense for their set of partners for this particular execution. It may be very different for another set of partners with a different execution because it's going to take 2 to 3 to tango in terms of having the right identifiers at the right scale. And so it's not only about the publishers having the right addressable reach and those IDs. The advertiser at the end of the day has to do the same thing on their side of the fence to make sure that there is a cohesive match and there is enough addressable scale there in order to make a campaign worthwhile. But also contextual signals, another thing, are going to fold into play here. Addressable advertising is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Okay, well, to follow up on that one, who's driving the demand and adoption for measurement through the data clean rooms? Is it the media owners or is it the advertisers?
So as a vendor, I will, you put that hat on my head and I'd say, we've seen a lot of first movers in terms of brands jump in, mostly being guided by their agencies and consultancies who want to learn more about first-party data strategies, about clean rooms and data collaboration. But the ones we've seen really lean in and really build a product and build a solution around clean room tech have been publishers. They're the ones who are being threatened by the loss of cookies. They're the ones who are being threatened by the rise of multiple walled gardens. They're the ones who essentially now have the assets that advertisers need to make sure they're delivering relevant communications and actually extracting relevant and productive measurement. And so we've seen media owners, specifically really in the CTV, the retail media space, anywhere where there's logged in users, they've really taken the first step at looking at data cleanroom technology as a tool for them to use to generate their own revenue, to generate net new streams of revenue, and control how their first party data asset, whether it's large or small, is actually being utilized by the media purchasers and the agencies at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. And our next viewer asks about the IAB and how they're defining measurement. They recently identified measurement as a significant opportunity for data clean rooms, with less than a third of data clean rooms users using them for any type of advanced measurement. Has this changed throughout the year, and are marketers leaving money on the table when it comes to data clean rooms and measurement?
Me?
This is for Devin. This is for you.
Okay, cool. I mean, look, it depends on what region that you're based in. I would say if you're in the UK, EU, I would say the more of the focus is on planning and activation. In America, I think measurement has always been this kind of holy grail that people are trying to attain. And clean rooms are just the new tool, the new solution that is going to help hopefully fix the measurement challenges as we talked about today. And so obviously we work very closely with the IAB and the IAB Tech Lab to make sure that all of the standards and all the operational procedures are followed correctly. I do feel that measurement is an area of exploration and testing and learning that we're still in the thick of it right now. And as we talked about earlier, we're now providing solutions that enable both the hands-on keyboards marketers to run the types of measurement calculations that they need to run, but also we're still empowering the data scientists and the analysts to do things in a safer way. So I think the more we see these organizations use clean rooms for measurement, the more we're going to start to see those use cases increase over time. And hopefully we'll get 100% penetration of every organization now just using clean rooms as the new safe standard for connecting and essentially exchanging information when it comes to measurement.
Okay, very helpful. We are going to take one more question. Scott, what are your top 3 recommendations for brand and media owners looking to future-proof measurement solutions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is you obviously need to collect some first-party data, right? We've already seen this with publishers, we've seen it with brands, but publishers are really trying to adopt more ability to collect data sets so that they can tie that back for measurement purposes. I would say that's first. I would say, finding a clean room partner that you can work with. I think getting into clean rooms, testing them, understanding how to access data, understanding how to use them is a critical component. I think we've seen people as well on our side they're playing with them, but they haven't sort of fully adopted at scale. And I think part of that is people just need to test and get into those environments and really begin to explore them and know how they're going to use it, because it's just a matter of time before they come across a provider who's not willing to sort of share exposure data or outcome data, and being able to have that as a capability to use the clean room makes a lot of sense. And last, I'd sort of say, look at partners that can also help support outcome data. Certain brands are able to collect, their own first-party sales outcomes. Sometimes they need help collecting outcomes based on website visits, exposures, the ability to sort of collect those via pixel, have that data set be able to be resolved in a clean room, or pick a partner that can sort of also help you with outcome data where you might not have something, or you might be lighter on outcomes, even on your own sales data. You might not have a loyalty program. Look for partners that can also help augment that set so you can get a more holistic view on the performance of campaigns.
Okay, thank you so much for those recommendations. Scott, Devin, what a pleasure to be with both of you today. That was such an insightful presentation, and that was a really fun Q&A. And thank you so much to our audience for engaging with us. It was really great to see you both.
And thanks for having us.
Sure. So before we wrap up, I'm just going to take a moment to tell you what's happening coming up for our eMarketer events here. Mark your calendar for Friday, November 3rd for our Attention Summit, our half-day virtual live summit focused on trends and predictions for 2024. Registration is open on our events page, eMarketer.com/events. And while you're on that events page, you can also sign up for our upcoming live analyst and tech talk webinars. So we hope to see you there. And finally, keep an eye on your email for the link to today's recording. Thank you all for your time. And thanks again to Scott, Devin, the team at InfoSum, and our Studio II crew, our production team behind the scenes, for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.